Hey guys, thanks for joining. Hope you're doing well today. And in this video, I'm going to talk about Luminar and I'm going to compare it to Color Efex Pro, which is part of the Nik Collection by DxO. Now, I did a video a little while ago comparing Luminar to the Nik Collection, and that was the entire collection, which is seven different plugins. And it matches up against mostly 6 of them pretty well. The one it doesn't really match up against is Analog Efex Pro. And I did a separate video about that as well. And I'll put links for these here and there and wherever. But there's one product out of those 7, and it's Color Efex Pro, that I think is most similar to Luminar. And I'm going to say similar. It's not the same. And to be clear, like, my bias is Luminar. So if you're interested in the too long didn't read version, I would say Luminar is better. But Color Efex Pro is great. And when I first started using plugins, this was 9 years ago or something. I was hearing about it. I feel like it was 9 years. I don't know the numbers, but anyway, at some point I bought Color Efex. Well, I bought the whole Nik collection actually, but I used Color Efex Pro on every photo for something like 5 years. That was pretty much all I did. Back then, I had my library in Aperture, and Apple said, "Hey, we're dumping that," and so I moved to Lightroom. But I used Aperture and I used Color Efex Pro, and when I did HDRs, I used Photomatic. So this was part of the Skyloom, or those days, Mac Fun days for me. And Color Efex Pro was great, and to be honest, it is great. It's a great product. It's got a lot of filters. It's, as the name implies, it's great for applying color effects to your photos. Now, that's the same thing I do in Luminar, but they do them differently. So I'm going to jump in and talk about some of the differences between the two, and also then show you some of the differences between the two. So let's hop into that. Now, I'm going to start with this handy little chart I made. So there are 55, that's a 5 and a 5, filters in Color Efex Pro. There are 50 in Luminar, and if you think the next thing that I say is I'm going to compare every one of them, wrong video, my friends. I don't have the time. I do this for free just because I love it, and I'm not that dedicated. Sorry. However, I did decide to do my best sort of quick compare between the 55 filters in Color Efex Pro and what are the reasonable equivalents of filters in Luminar. And so now this print is tiny, teeny tiny. So I'm going to make this as a PDF that you can download. It'll be a 1-page, it'll be tiny, and I'll put a link down below if you want to look at it. Now, I want to be clear and clarify here. I don't know for sure that all these are exactly the perfect filter matchup between the two. I did some comparisons. I took different images. I looked at them both in both products, and I said, okay, well, what they're doing in Color Efex Pro is this, and then I'm fairly experienced with Luminar, so I was like, okay, well, I know I can do it this way in Luminar. Now, that doesn't always mean that's the best way or the easiest way to do it in Luminar, but it's a way. Sometimes I said, oh, I already know how to do that, and so I just wrote the filter down. So I didn't test all 55 and say, hey, I want to do this. Now, there are some where I put NA, short for non-applicable or not applicable. So, for example, there's 4 different film effects: faded, modern, nostalgic, and vintage in Color Efex Pro that add these kind of analog effects. In my opinion, go to Analog Efex Pro. The whole product is for that, and I think it's better. But there are 4 in there, and you don't really have that filter in Luminar. However, you do have the matte look filter, and you can add textures and things like that on multiple layers, which you cannot do in Color Efex Pro because it doesn't have layers. And so that's where you sort of get into this game of, well, yeah, you can't really do that. So, maybe Luminar doesn't sound as good. But then, like, you can go to Luminar and you can say, yeah, but I can do this and that, and you can't really do that over here. So I'm kind of babbling. I don't know what I'm rambling, babbling, yapping. However, my point is that it's impossible to do an apples-to-apples comparison between different products because, I can do things in Luminar I can't do in Color Efex Pro, vice versa. Heck, I can do things in Snapseed, the mobile app, that maybe I can't do in Luminar. But that doesn't make Snapseed a better editor for my photos than Luminar. It just means it's different, and maybe they have things in it that maybe I don't need, or, hey, it'd be cool to have, but I don't yet have in Luminar, and maybe someday I'll get. So it's not apples to apples. You've heard it. I've said it enough. Now, there are... So to compare the quantity, 55 in Color Efex Pro and 50 in Luminar. So you might think, well, golly, Color Efex Pro must be better. It's got 5 more. Well, it does, but it doesn't. Some of them are repeats, like the film effects. There's 4 different film effects, but they're just different settings. And so that's kind of one to me. But, I could say the same thing about Luminar. Like there's, highlights and shadows as a filter, but you can get that in the raw develop filter. So it's not really 50 in Luminar either. So to me, the numbers are out the window. I don't really care because I'm never going to use all 50 filters in Luminar, and I'm never going to use all 55 in Color Efex Pro. In fact, when I used Color Efex Pro religiously for 5 years or whatever, there's probably 6 filters I used, maybe 10 tops. So 10 like damn good ones that I lived in, and then 45 that were just kind of like like there was one called Monday Morning. I don't get it. This is not my thing. Not interesting. But hey, you might be a Color Efex Pro expert and you might say that about something in Luminar. That's cool. I'm not judging. This is my opinion, right? So take it with a grain of salt. The filters that Luminar does have that you don't have in Color Efex Pro, you have raw develop, you have accent AI, which is killer, structure, which I love, tone. Now tone's kind of a combination of other things that you could probably do in Color Efex Pro if you knew the filters well enough. Clarity, you have dehaze, you have denoise. You don't have any denoise in Color Efex Pro. Or do you actually? No, you don't. I look at so many software products, they kind of start to spin around in a big whirlwind in my head. You have matte look, but you have the film effects stuff in Color Efex Pro, so maybe that's a wash. Image radiance and Orton effect, which I love. They have one called Glamour Glow that's very similar to those. Kind of gives you that romantic-y kind of look. So, kind of even there. Soft glow, I love. Split toning. There's no split toning in Color Efex Pro. Split color warmth. I dig that thing. That's there. Sun rays. I know some people are going to scream and say, dude, sun rays sucks. Everybody's killing us with it. It's overdone or whatever. Okay, sure, whatever. That's fine. You can have that opinion. And I don't always disagree, but hey, it's cool and it's not in Color Efex Pro. It is in Luminar. So like it or not, I'm talking about what Luminar has that Color Efex Pro doesn't have. Dodge and burn, color balance, texture overlay, LUT mapping, even the HSL filter isn't in Color Efex Pro. So there's a lot of things that you get in Luminar you don't get in Color Efex Pro. And that's just filters. Now there's also tools in Luminar that you don't get in Color Efex Pro. There's layers, there's blend modes, there's the crop, the free transform, clone and stamp, erase. You have workspaces. You get a bunch of presets built in. There are 10 presets built into Color Efex Pro, 10. Admittedly, I never used them. I didn't like them, but there are 10 presets, but there's quite a few more. In Luminar, you can make presets in either app, right? However, you got all the masking tools in Luminar. You got brush masking, gradient masking, radial masking, luminosity masking, and on top of that, you can do filter masking, where you can use multiple filters on the same layer and mask them in with the brush or the gradient or whatever without having to get to a new layer. Now, the flip side of that, which would be the Color Efex Pro side of that, is they have something called control points. And that was the big selling point for this app because you could do the same thing. You stack all these filters. It didn't have layers and it doesn't have layers, but you could stack 5, 10 filters. And within each filter, you could go drop control points, which allow you to pick an area where you want that filter to apply. So it's very similar to filter masking, but it's called a control point and it's kind of circular in nature as opposed to being able to just be brushed in. But it's cool. And one other thing that Luminar has, and that is it doesn't have actually, but it's gonna have at some point, and that is the DAM, the Digital Asset Manager, the catalog, the library, the whatever you want to call it. I don't know when it's coming. I know you're gonna ask, and I want to know as bad as you do, but I don't know. So, you can ask, but I don't know. But it is coming. I trust that it's coming. I know they're working on it, so it's coming. Okay, so that's enough talking. Let's get into some photos, Mr. Nix. So let me close that. I'll put that available for download. Okay, Color Efex Pro. Here's your interface. You got all the filters, all 55 right here on your left-hand side. And this on the right-hand side is where your filters go when you select them. So to put that in the parlance of Luminar, that would be your workspace on the right side and your filter library, if you will, or filter list on the left side. Luminar puts everything on the right side, which I like because it gives me more real estate for my photo. Now I can close either one of these, but should I do that, I can't get to my filters. So I kind of don't like that idea, but keep in mind the I called it Nik's, sorry. The Nik Collection was made years ago, and it languished for years under Google's ownership. Google did absolutely zero with it. Now that DxO has it, I trust that some of the things that I'm talking about in this video, this is June 2018, are going to change in future versions. I hope they are. They need to improve the product. It's a great product still, and it hasn't been touched for years, but it could be a whole lot better. So all you do, you pick a filter, and you come over here, and you say, hey, I want brilliance and warmth. And then when you click it, it pops over in the right-hand side. So checkbox is your on and off, kind of like the eyeball in Luminar. You can hit that X to delete it, and it takes it out of your workspace, and you back over here. But I want that one, so I'm going to say brilliance and warmth. Now, you can come over here, and you can just drag saturation, and you can drag warmth, and you can say, man, that's looking pretty cool. I can dig it. That's what I like. And then you have this thing called perceptual saturation, which is extra cool. It's kind of like vibrance, not really, but I don't know. I haven't talked to these people, so I'm telling you my opinion. It's kind of like vibrance in that it seems to add some saturation and intensity to some of the non-primary colors. But it pumps up some of the primary ones too. Like if you look at the blues are definitely changing. So that's how that's a filter. But the control points are the cool part, right? So you just click on plus, and you can just go drop a control point over here. And you notice you got a little list over here. Now 20% is the size, and this is the opacity, right? So there's my size. You can see that number is going. If you look at the little orange number next to control point 1, it's increasing and decreasing. So I'm going to leave it. That's how you sort of cover an area. The opacity, you can just kind of go like that. Let's see here. Now I'm going to highlight. I'm going to say Command C, and then I'm going to say Command V, click. 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 And that's how I would do it in Color Efex Pro, is just drop these control points. Because they're circular, you don't want them to get too big, right? Because then it'll start bleeding into other parts of the photo. So you can move them around once you have them there and sort of adjust things. You can change the size, as I said. It's very flexible, very cool. But then you can do this thing where you click on that. So I said earlier that's opacity. That's not the opacity. As you can see, that's where you can show and hide the selection. So you can see what these control points are touching. The gold one is control point 4. That's the one that's highlighted right here and is in gold. But by clicking on that, it shows you what they're covering. So in many ways, that's masking, right? That's pretty much the same as doing like a brush mask and just applying something in Luminar. So it works very well. You can turn it off, and you can unhighlight that one. And that's how control points work. If you decide you don't want one, you can just click on it, hit the delete key, and it's gone, right? So the cool thing is you can do that for every filter. So let's say you want another filter. You say add filter, and let's see here. What do I want? What's a good one? I had a couple written down. Oh, I'll get Glamour Glow. That was my favorite back in the day. Well, one of my favorites. It just gives you that moody kind of romantic glow. So you go like that, and it kind of a little contrasty, a little soft. You can bump up some saturation. You can take the warmth a little cooler if you want. I just like it. It gives a nice little vibe to the photo. Let me show you the before and the after. Glamour Glow is cool. Once again, you could go in with control points and say, well, but I only really want it in a couple of spots. So I want it in the water, Jim. And I'm only doing that because I did it in the water in the other place. So I'm going to say Command C, and I'm going to say Command V, Command V, Command V, Command V. Sorry, you're listening to me say Command V a lot. There we go. Now, I just did the same thing as I did for the first filter, and I just did it for this filter. And so they default to that size of 20%, and easily you just grab this and you just increase or decrease the size, right? And then this one is the opacity, so you can actually change how much of that effect is within the radius of that circle, which is kind of cool. So that's kind of like an opacity, a brush mask, lowered opacity. Actually, it is like a brush mask with a lowered opacity. So it's basically the same thing. You can say, well, I want a higher opacity over here for some reason, right? I want 100%, but over here, I only want, and you can see the number, I only want, 33%. I don't know, I'm making it up as I go, but that's how it works. Your numbers correspond over here, and then you can do this thing again, and that shows you, and you can see lower opacity here, right? White reveals, sort of like black conceals. That's kind of the old Photoshop thing, I guess. But that's how all that works. And so what I want to do, I'm going to turn that off so you can see it. Anyway, you can just keep stacking filters. You just add filters, and then if you're happy with it and you want to save that as a preset, you just say Save Recipe. And so that's where I come over here and you click on Recipes and you say All, and these are the 10 that were included with the photo. And like I said, I don't really care for it. So I just stuck with these. They have these filters categorized as well. So you might, for some reason, want specific filters for, you might think, well, I'm an architecture photographer, so these are the filters I need on all that. So that's cool. I just like the alphabetical list. It was just easier for me. And what else was there? Sunlight was actually, or Skylight was actually really nice. I'm just going to turn that on. That's kind of like golden hour. So that's why I said a lot of these filters kind of are similar. And if you didn't notice, and maybe you did, I had another filter here, but I went over to the filter menu and grabbed it instead of clicking add filter. And so when I did that, if I choose midnight now, it overwrites the filter that's here. So I'm going to go back to Skylight and get that, right? So that, just be careful of that if you end up using this product. You can, do a split screen here, that sort of thing. You can slide it back and forth. You can do a compare like that, right? Kind of cool. And then you can do compare there, which I think, oh, no, spacebar zoom. I was thinking spacebar was also the compare, but it's not. So you can click compare. That's a before and after. So that's how that works. Now to compare that to Luminar, I've got the same photo here. By the way, there's a histogram down here if you want to look at it. You also got a loop if you want to, dive into something. You can kind of see in the loop there. I'm kind of zooming in. I generally leave that on histogram, but to be honest, I kind of generally don't use it at all. And same goes for Luminar. I don't really use the histogram a whole lot. I go by feel as opposed to the sort of the technical bits, but this is me. So add filters. Maybe I want some tone, and maybe I want some brilliance and warmth, because that's what I had over there. I didn't have tone, but I might need it for the light. We'll see. So same kind of thing here, right? You know how Luminar works. If you've been watching my videos, you know how Luminar works. And if you haven't been watching my videos, I've got a playlist. It's got like 60-something videos in it for Luminar. So just a wealth of free stuff to go watch. But you can get a similar look in either product. To me, the difference is you can come over here and you have these masking options, which is kind of like a control point. So, I'll give you that. It's more like a automatic brush mask to me. Actually, you know what? Actually, that's not true. It's actually more like an automatic radial mask. That's probably a better way of putting it. But you've also got gradient and you've got luminosity. So I think that's sort of a win, for lack of a better word, for Luminar. You have layers, right? So I can go over here and add a new adjustment layer. I can add a new image layer to put a new sky in, which I wouldn't want to replace this sky because I think it's lovely. But you have layers, so you can keep stacking things and doing more creative edits than you could do in Color Efex Pro, simply because it does not have a layers function. My assumption, and just a guess, that someday, some year, DxO will probably say, God, we really got to have layers in this thing, and they'll do it. I don't know. We'll see. So that's that histogram here, and you get the exposure information. That's kind of cool. Here's your before and after, like you had there, and here's your sliding. That's kind of fun. Oh, I didn't tell you about this. There's a history. So you can go over here to history and you can see all the different things. Now, I was playing with this photo some before I started recording this, so that's why there's like 40 bajillion things in the history. But that's pretty cool. So you could go back and click on that and you could say, I really like that location or that edit, and you can see it grays out the stuff that came after it, and it takes me back to where I was. And again, this was something I was playing with before the video started, so you didn't see that. But you've got a history here, right? So you know how that works. You can go back in time. I haven't done as much here. And you can also undo here. Zooming, the usual stuff, right? The things that are different about Luminar, the crop tool, which means straightening as well. So I can come in here and say, God, I really need to straighten this thing. I'm going to hit reset because that's a mess. Or crop it. And you get all these different aspect ratios you can crop to. Can't do that in Color Efex Pro. You've also got free transform. So if you did put a new sky in, you could put that sky in and then scoot it up so more of your sky image is in the sky section. I've got a video about that if you want to see it. Clone and stamp. Hey, I really like this piece of the photo. I want to replace that piece over there with this piece here. Okay, so you can sort of copy and paste. It's a way to think of it. And erase. Oh, I've got dust spots. I need to get rid of those. Oh, that guy started walking into my photo and I got part of his hand. Erase that, right? So that sort of thing. So those are tools that you don't have. Presets. There's copious amounts of presets. I need to, let's see, get into the basic. There's a lot of things here, right? So there's basic, there's street, outdoor, portrait, travel, dynamic, and aerial. There's free preset packs that are available from time to time. There's a number of preset packs that are for sale in different places around the web, including on my blog. So a lot of different things there. And then you've got all these export options, including the ability to use plugins over here. So you can go to Aurora, you could go to Photoshop, you can go, sort of wherever you want to go. And there's also plugins here, which I did a video about if you want to plug into other things. I use like Analog Efex Pro as a plugin to Luminar, for example. So you got a lot of options there. I'm about to wrap this up. Let me close the history and just go back to this. Let's see here. I think that's all the major stuff about Color Efex Pro. When you're done, you say save image as, and you get basic stuff, right? Basic stuff. Your export options are fairly limited. Over here, as you know, export to image, and you can do a lot of things, including resizing based on pixel dimensions. You can choose your color space and your format, and of course quality. So it's a bit more advanced there. Keep in mind, Luminar is a newer product. If it wasn't more advanced, we'd be kind of scratching our heads and saying, what the hell? So it's more advanced. I think it's obvious that I'm a fan of Luminar based on all my videos, and I'm trying to be very unbiased and straightforward in this one. I prefer Luminar. I think it's frankly way better. However, I spent many years using Color Efex Pro. I'm not as adept at it now as I was in the past. I spent all my time in Luminar and Aurora HDR, but at the time that I lived in Color Efex Pro, I thought it was the greatest thing of all time. So, I felt the way about Color Efex Pro that I now feel about Luminar. So, times have changed, code has changed, software has changed, editing products have advanced significantly. There's a lot more you can do. I hope and I trust that DxO is going to put a lot of effort into it and update Color Efex Pro and make it even more powerful than it is. It's historically been an incredible product. Tons of pro photographers have used it. Tons of all kinds of photographers have used it. I hope that they invest in it and grow it so that we have, continue to have competition in the market. I think it's great for us as photographers to have these companies going head to head and trying to out-feature each other, because that just means we get more tools, and that's good for all of us. So that's a comparison. I hope that it's helpful. Click below, leave me a comment, subscribe, share. What else is there to do? Hey, like the video. Do you like the video? Hope you like it. I like doing these things. It's a lot of fun. Thanks for coming and following along. And what else? I didn't even show you. Golly, I'm a terrible person. There's 50 filters in Luminar that I talked about, and they're all here. So you just get to it with that Add Filters menu. That's why I like it. In Color Efex Pro, if you recall, they're all on the left, and your editing window or workspace in Luminar terms is on the right-hand side. Over here, it's all there. You just say open filter menu, you get what you need, and it drops back in, and you're done. So it gives you more real estate for your photo. I'm a fan of being able to see my photos bigger, because that's a big deal. So I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks again for following along on my photographic and creative journeys. I really appreciate it. I'll see you soon, my friends. Take care, and adios.